400. Chapter 6. The Evil League of Mutants. Notes. Woohoo, I did it. Hey guys, hope you enjoy this one. It's in the middle, for once not too long, and not too short, so I hope y'all enjoy this one. I actually hit the page requirement for once. I'm proud of myself. Anywho, enjoy grinning face. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Chapter text. The cold water was refreshing. Sure, Michelangelo never liked water in general. The gargoyles could tell many stories of his tantrums as a toddler and kid during bath time. But something about the water running down the bruising around his neck just made it seem relieved the bleeding wound under his skin. His voice was coming back. A bit raspy, but he should still get away with it. Not that it matters. It was hard to explain to the gargoyles why he wasn't talking. But his outfit covered the bruising, meaning not many questions were asked. They just took it as he was tired from the planning. Today was the day that his father's plan went into action. To the side was his outfit prepped and ready for him. He swallows the lump in his throat, causing pain to shoot down his throat. He held onto his throat, trying to soothe the pain he created. In the process, he grabbed the outfit, leaving the bathroom. Now in the hall, he slips into it. Oh good, you're out. He hears just to the right of him, just as he puts on his mask covering the rest of the bruising. It was Mutant. Anyway, we're all ready to go, so let's head out, Mutant said as he motions to where the exit is. Michael only nodded, heading over passing Mutant as he felt his concerned look in the back of his head. At the entrance, he can see his father and Huggin chatting as they wait for him and Mutant. Ah, there you are. Come now, we don't have time to waste, Draxum said, motioning for him to hurry. Mutant flew ahead, landing on his father's shoulder, along with Huggin. Michael picked up his pace to stand beside Draxum. With that, they were off. Arriving at the building, they enter a room. It was dark, so Michelangelo tried to flip a switch, only to be stopped. No need. You'll remove our dramatic entrance, Draxum said with a bit of a snicker as he put his hand in front of him to stop the teen's motion. Draxum raises his arm, which glows a violet hue. The room was dimly lit now as a portal appeared in front of a long table in the room. Out of the portal popped out two crab-like mutants. They both land in a chair. What's going on? One of them asked. I don't know, but I like the look of the spread, the other said, referring to the spread on the table left by the staff in the building. They get up to grab some. Michael recognized them from the files. Although he knew nothing about them, he remembers the file saying something about them being newly mutated and working as performers. Just as the two mutants sit down, several more mutants fall out of portals. A hippo, mantis, pig, and a few others that were hard to see in the dark. They all groaned from the fall as they picked themselves up. They all stare around the table, looking around and questioning why they were there, while the two mutant crabs from before are still munching on the spread. The first to talk was the mantis mutant, who slammed one of his raptorials into the table in an attempt to seem intimidating. One of you muties know what's going on here? He asked, looking between the two crab men who had just finished their spread. I got a birthday cake that needs repossessing, he continued. Which one of you brought me here? The hippo interrupted, throwing one of their rings at the mantis and targeting their head. It narrowly missed the mantis, taking off a few hair strands as it went over his head. The hippo catches the ring as it comes back to him. Who do I have cut in half and not put back together? He continued, only to be startled by a hammer being slammed down on the other end of the table. All I see is fresh meat for me to batter fry. Meat Sweats chimed in. Several vines grab him. Silence. Meat Sweats. His father booms as he throws the pig to the side. The two gargoyles chuckle at the name as Michael giggles. The group steps out of the shadows, revealing themselves to the other villains in the room. I am the one who brought you here, Draxum said as he approached the table. I look around this room. I see nothing but potential. Who thinks it's about time we? Draxum continued, only to be interrupted by a loud scraping noise. Everyone stares as it creeps to the table. From behind the chair, a worm mutant appeared. Please continue, the worm started as he hopped on the chair. Draxum, a bit confused by the worm's sudden presence, turned to Michael. Who is he? He asked the turtle. Michael simply shrugged, not recognizing him from the roster. Draxum simply shrugs it off, continuing his speech and clearing his throat. We joined together today for one simple menacing claw. The lights turn on, revealing the small office, interrupting Draxum for the second time. Lemonade, a capybara shouted from the side of the room. I hate to brag, but it has been called both life-changing and dream-making. Who wants some? The capybara stated as he passed around lemonade from a tray he was holding. Draxum turns to Michael, practically in a huddled group with the gargoyles as well. What's going on here? Who is this? Draxum exclaimed, pointing at the capybara. I don't know, sir. I didn't put him on the roster, Michael claimed, having never seen the capybara before today, although he was sure he was a bagger. Huggin quickly answered this question. That would be Todd, sir. Trust me, he's as bad as they come. Draxum peers over his shoulder to look at Huggin, and then looks at Todd, who was finishing passing out the lemonade. I told you to get me the baddest, meanest, most skill-crushing mutants. And you bring me that guy? Draxum continued, pointing at the capybara. Draxum only sighed. It's fine, just stay on task, he said as he turned back to the group of mutants. He cleared his throat as he attempted to continue his speech. Everyone at this table shares a common enemy. We are here to destroy those teenage mutant ninja. To a loud sip interrupts him. He glares at the hippo mutant before he attempts to continue again. We are he sip quotation mark. If everyone has, sip quotation mark. Okay now sip pp. Draxum takes a breath before continuing. No, I brought you here slip quote ppp. This time the noise came from the gargoyles. Enough. Draxum slammed both his hands on the table, causing everyone in the room to flinch. I brought you all here because the turtles are my creations. Love those guys, Todd said at the mention of the turtles. Are ruining my plans for yokai kind to reclaim our place on the surface. With your help, we can take them out and you can be free, and finally become everything I so badly want you to be, Draxum cried, raising his head now glowing a slight purple. All the drinks produce a similar glow. Draxum closes his hand into a fist, and almost simultaneously all the drinks crunched in on themselves. Draxum took a breath after blurting that all out. Michelangelo upon seeing this tries to help him regain his breath control. Draxum raises his hand signaling he did not need help, so Michael backed off, returning to his position. Draxum straightens his back looking upon the many mutants in the room. Now who's with me, he said. The mutants were exchanging looks waiting for one of the others to speak. That is until the worm man speaks up. Excuse me, he hops on the table, so now everyone can see him, and his obnoxiously large fist. It was practically the size of him. I, Warren Stone, a former anchorman, and their official greatest foe, have a few questions. Before this ghoulish gang, the worm named Warren Stone stated before Draxum interrupted him. I'm sorry, who are you again? He asked the worm man. Hugin was the first to answer. I have no idea. Draxum turns to his pupil, who shrugged, not having recognized the worm either. Why is one of his fists so big? Draxum asked. Michelangelo just shrugged again. Munin took this as his chance to speak. Why is one of your fists so big? He directed at the worm as the small group stared at him. A random man comes. Excuse me, sir, there's been a slight problem with your credit card. It's Akakun, the man said as he held up a Salak. Draxum looks over to Michael. You gave them one of my Salaks. He questioned the teen. They were nagging me for something, so I just threw that at him, Michelangelo replied in a low whisper. The worm surprisingly was able to lift his gauntlet and blast the human out of there. Well, that solves that problem, Michael thinks to himself. The room clapped for the worm. Impressive, Draxum mumbled. As the clapping began to die down, the pig mutant named Meat Sweat spoke. Small query. Who is he? The pig questioned as he pointed at Michael, who tensed at his questions. And why do you keep saying you created the turtles? Michelangelo felt a hand rest on his shoulder. It was Draxum. He is none of your concern, Draxum stated to the pig mutant. And as for the turtles, Draxum tried to continue, but the gargoyles were quick to hush him. We're glad you asked, Huggins started. We'll take it from here, boss, Munin started. The lights went out as Michelangelo heard music starting. Wait, are they going to sing again? Michelangelo thought as the music continues. Cowabummer, Raph said, landing harshly against the concrete roof. He didn't care what the point was. They were all grounded even after they snuck out. He could feel that tonight was going to drag. I can't believe he grounded us, Raph stated, bumping his fist against the concrete wall. I still can't believe we managed to sneak out. You sure he won't find out, D? Leo asked, laying down on the edge of a billboard hanging by the building they were on. Don't worry, I've taken care of everything, Donnie said. Leo thought about how he took care of it. Did you just leave the pillow there again? Leo asked, partially knowing that his twin most likely did. I would never, Donnie replied, pretending to be offended. Raph rolled his eyes at the twins' antics as they went back and forward. He looks down the street to see the foot lieutenant. His eyes went wide as he jolted up, pointing at the street. Hey, guys, look. The twins both stopped the conversation and peered over Raph's shoulders. The lieutenant was near a van. The TVs are accounted for, and not a turtle in sight. Let's roll, the lieutenant said as he knocked on the van. This is our chance to get our train on, Raph said excitingly. But that excitement was short-lived when he made a grab for his tonfas only to be met with air. We don't have any weapons, he said as he groaned. If we can't beat crabmen with weapons, how would we beat these guys without them? Leo shouted, dramatically falling backward. Why can't something just fly out of the sky and solve all of our problems? Donnie said, and almost like magic, all three boys had a paper flying to their faces. Raph groaned as he took the paper off. Now what? Raph thought to himself. What's this? Raph said, reading the paper. Magic Saurus, Leo said enthusiastically, reading the paper that was in his face. First robot dinosaur magician. How he continued. One show only, Donnie said, reading the rest. Tonight in New Jersey, they all said in unison. But there was more on the bottom right corner of the page. Free pizza, Raph said. The notion of this flyer gave Raph an idea. This is the kind of mindless entertainment we need, to forget how Splinter grounded us. Boom, he proclaimed. By the looks on his brothers' faces, they were as well down for this idea. They all cheered as they made their way to the nearest ferry ride to New Jersey. Standing in front of an old worn-hose, Leo couldn't help but be a little suspicious. Are you sure we're in the right place? Leo asked, turning to his eldest brother. The flyers said it was in New Jersey. Raph told him, then pointed to the sign next to them. Welcome to New Jersey, Turtles, he said. Donnie leaned into the billboard, checking it for closer inspection. That's oddly specific, he said, taking note, and then choosing to ignore the fact that the sign said Teedales rather than Turtles. I don't know, guys. Something feels off, Leo said as he followed his sibling to the warehouse. You say that every time we visit New Jersey, Donnie stated, reminiscing the last time they visited. Leo gave Donnie a playful shove into the warehouse doors Raph just opened, as they all entered the building, seeing a small makeshift stage. Oh, okay, Leo said, looking into the room. Maybe we're early, Donnie said, taking notice that not much was going on. They all walked further in. The warehouse door behind them shut close behind them, enclosing the room in darkness. Lights suddenly came on, pointing at the stage. Oh, ambience, Raph said as all the lights came on. Well, we meet again, a voice announced. Where's that voice coming from? Wait, don't tell me, Leo said, trying his best to remember where he heard it from. You all entered, but none of you will exit, the voice continues. The curtains on the stage pulled back a bit. Out of the dark shadows of the stage, a familiar yokai appeared. Welcome to your worst nightmare, it was Baron Draxum. The teens all jumped back into a defensive position. Baron Draxum, Raph shouted. Wait a second, Leo cried. This guy's warrior, scientist, and a magician. Talk about a triple threat, Leo said, too enthusiastically for the situation they were in. But he still stood in a defensive stance. Munin gasped in excitement. Boss, you didn't tell us you could do magic. We love magic, the gargoyle said. Oh, can you turn Munin and four into a bunny? Huggin said. Leo looks past Draxum to see Goatface just behind him. Silence, Draxum shouted, causing the two gargoyles to fly away to another part of the room. The magic was a trick. This is a trap, Draxum stated as he raised his hand. And with a snap, the rest of the stage curtains pulled back, revealing the mini-villains they encountered over the course of a few weeks. Warren Stone was the first to speak. Breaking news, you're toast. Then meet Sweat's liver toast. The Snatto brothers clamped their claws together in an attempt to seem intimidating. As an actual magician, I'm offended by this charade, Hypno chimed in before Reprimandus spoke up. I'm about to repo your lives. This is why you never go to New Jersey, Leo shouted, pointing at the mini-villains on stage. One last chance, children, Draxum started. He clenched his fist and held it up near his face. If you join me, I can teach you how to maximize your potential and be all you can be. Live up to fate. You were born as mutants. What's your answer? He asked the three teenage mutants in front of him. They were all silent until Leo spoke out. You threw me off a roof, he proclaimed, throwing his hands in the air dramatically. So that's a not joining me then. Fine, you rejected me for the last time. Now your story ends, he said, getting ready to attack until Donatello spoke out. Tood, quotation mark. He said. His brothers spot the capybara on the way back. Todd waves at them. Hey Donnie, how do you like my new friends? They are so serious. I'm like, what? And they're like, ah. And I'm like, Tood tried to speak only to be interrupted by a very impatient Draxum. Enough, now the story ends. Attack, Draxum said, quickly pointing at the three colorfully masked turtles. Abracapau, time to pay the payment. Turtle bones, the mutants cry as they approached. Raph's brothers both back up to be more behind him. Raph audibly gulped and gave a shy laugh. The mutants then attack the three turtles. All three scream as they scramble to get away from the attacks. Raph dives behind a large crate, trying his best to get from Hypno's rings. On the stage, Draxum stood with his yokai apprentice Goatface, who they meet a few weeks back. Dang, not even the curtsy to face us himself, Raph thought to himself. The crate next to Raph crashed as Donnie was thrown through it. Donnie hit the wall at the edge of the warehouse harshly. If it weren't for his battle shell, it most likely would have hurt worse. Donnie, Raph cried as he ran over to help him up. Leo was dodging tirelessly to avoid Meat Sweat's mallet. But when you have several villains attacking you from every direction, getting hit is almost guaranteed. Reprimandus had managed to grab a pole with his raptoriales and use it almost like a bat and swung it at Leo, who was in mid-jump. Leo was sent flying at Raph, who was helping Donnie up. All three turtles crashed, causing them to break the wall of the warehouse and go flying outside, landing in mini crates at the end of the docks. They all groaned as they tried to stand up. Man, we should have just stayed home, Leo said, slowly getting up from the broken crates. Dad was right, And we were so mean, he continued. It's been a pleasure working with you fellas, Donnie said, not trying to get up from his pile of rubble. But one large whiff of something caused him to lift his head. Do you smell that? He asked his twin. What? Raph's facing impossible odd skink, Leo said, slowly emerging from the broken piles of crates he landed in. Donnie picked up the source of the smell. No, it's he tried to speak, but Raph popped out of his crate full of fish ladders. He cried as he scrambled out of the giant crate. It's the fish market ladder factory we never knew we always wanted, he said, pointing at the factory conveniently right in front of them. Leo gasped. WWJD, what would Lou Jitsu do? He proclaimed. Splinter's training really did have a purpose, Donnie said, now fully out of the rubble. Raph grabbed a ladder and slammed it down, taking on a hero pose. Let's make him proud, boys. The mutants approached closer to see that the turtles had survived. Time to make turtle soup, Meat Sweats exclaimed as he and the other villains charged. Donnie quickly grabs the ladder, hoping for a large pile of fish in the process. Leo grabs a swordfish, getting ready to charge as well. Cowabunga, Raph exclaimed as he and Leo charged the villains. Donnie from behind spins his ladder like a bow and shoots flying fish at the villains to support his brothers. Donnie manages to take down both the Sandus brothers and Repo Mantis, but with Meat Sweats leading the charge, Raph faces him. He attempts to hit Raph with his overly large mallet, but Raph blocks each attack, eventually managing to snag the mallet in the hole in the ladder steps. That's too much flavor, Meat Sweats say as he realizes the situation the teen put him in. Raph rips the mallet out of Meat Sweats' hand, tossing it up in the air with the ladder. He then uses the ladder to trip his opponent, causing Meat Sweats to fall. Who needs mystic weapons? Raph stated, catching the mallet in his hand before tossing it up the ladder, allowing Leo to get a higher angle at the villains. When you got fish and ladders, Leo shouted in the air, holding a swordfish in the air. Leo quickly attacks both the Sando brothers, knocking them down both into the ground. One was sent flying off in the other direction. Leo lands on the giant dock as one of the Sando brothers landed right behind him, with a loud thud, landing on a pile of fish. The crab mutant grumbled as he tried to get up. What's the matter, too much fish to fry? Leo snarky remarked. The crab grumbled as they swiftly got up. I'm going to pulver you, he said, slamming the floor to push himself up. Leo ran the other way, making the crab mutant chase after him. Leo spots the other brother running at him. From the loud crash behind him, he could tell that he didn't have to worry about brother number 2 anymore. He throws the swordfish he had in hand at the other crab. The fish rebounds off him, making the crab mutant unbalanced. Leo grabs the same fish that bounced off the crab, only to throw it again at him. The crab falls and attempts to get up, but Leo had already armed himself with 2 more fish and was repeatedly jabbing the crab man, making him fly into the air. Catch of the day, swordfishy, Leo cried, giving one last blow at the crab mutant, sending him flying. Looking behind him, he could see the other Sando brothers, Carl and Hypno, coming out of their hole. Oh, Carl said, realizing he's been spotted. Carl hides back into the hole, while Hypno merely chuckles nervously before receiving a fish to the face. All 3 brothers were winning their fight. Their opponents grew tired of chasing the rambunctious teens, making it all the easier for the league to be taken down. Hot soup, they cried. The 3 boys managed to corner all the villains. Raph extended the ladder he wielded and used it to hit all the villains off the premise of the warehouse. Raph's force was strong enough to lift dust clouds in every direction. Raph landed next to his brother, still holding onto their ladders. Now that your minions are done, let's tango, you sheep-looking, Raph started, but Draxum had other plans. Where did you learn to fight like that? Draxum said, taking a step closer with the goat face, getting ready to pounce. Oh, only from the greatest action film star in history, Raph said. Lou Jitsu, all 3 brothers said together, throwing their fists in the air. Draxum grumbled, how could you morons possibly know Lou Jitsu? Draxum said, confused. Well, he is our pops, so it only makes sense if we knew how to fight like him, Donnie said. His words seemed to trigger a reaction in both the remaining villains. He's alive, Draxum practically shouted. Of course he's alive. He's Lou Jitsu, Raph exclaimed proudly. Still hard to believe he's our dad. But then again, we should have known to do my rugged good looks, Leo said. I fact-checked it, so we are indeed biologically related to Lou Jitsu, aka Dad, Donnie said, grabbing Raph's arm and putting on his goggles to inspect something that the others couldn't see. The team began to be in their little world, talking about their dad. Both Draxum and Goatface just stood there in shock at the realization of the former Battle Nexus champion being alive. Eventually, Draxum had enough of the 3 teens rambling. Enough, Draxum shouted, quieting the 3 teenagers now looking in his direction. Since you 3 clearly do not see the true merit of your potential, Draxum stated, you are no longer needed. Draxum continued with a sour look on his face. 4. Get rid of these failures, Draxum told his apprentice to the side of him. Donnie tensed, realizing who exactly 4 is. Wait, your name's 4? Leo laughed, pointing at Draxum's assistant, who was formerly known as Goatface. What happened? 1, 2, 3 were taken. Leo snarky remarks. Ha! You think your little yokai assistant can take us 3 down? Raph chimed in, still feeling the adrenaline from the previous fight. He's not a match for us mad dogs, Raph continued. Donnie swallowed a lump, having a funny feeling he knew where this conversation was leading to. Draxum laughed. That's where you're wrong. Draxum looked at 4. An unspoken plan was unfolding between the two. 4 nodded, reaching for the mask on his face. 4 is no mere yokai. He's a being of my very own creation. Draxum continued as 4 tied his mask to his obi and removed his hood, revealing his face. Destined to be the downfall of mankind. Just like you were, Draxum said, and couldn't help but smile at the looks on the 3 brothers' faces. He's a turtle, Leo mumbled out, only eligible to his brothers around him. Damn it, they weren't supposed to find out this way, Donnie thought to himself, feeling a bead of sweat roll down his mask. Finish them off, 4, Draxum said as he took a step back to watch the battle unfold. Understood, sir, 4 replied. He pulled out his Kusari Fundo, getting ready to attack the 3 of them. Donnie took notice that Raph was unmoving, still shocked by the news. Leo was ready for the attack, but you could tell he still saw the hesitation on his face. 4 took 1 step about to charge, but stopped when he heard a whoosh behind him. Both Draxum and 4 looks to see a purple portal bloom behind them. It creates a vacuum, trying to suck both of them in. Draxum reacted quickly, pushing 4 behind him. He summons his vines, creating somewhat of a barrier between them and the portal. But the vacuum was strong and sucked up the vines. Draxum was then sucked in halfway, being dragged along with the vines, but Draxum had managed to push 4 further away to not be sucked up with him. Dad? 4 cried. 4 managed to send his Fundo to grab Draxum by his wrist halfway through the portal. The boy was struggling to pull out Draxum. If this were to proceed, he would be sucked in with them. Raph felt himself wanting to help him or grab the boy and take him away. He wasn't sure. But one thing he was certain of was that this other turtle in front of him was the same turtle his pops talked about just a little over a week ago. He could feel someone tug on his arm, holding him back. He turned to see it was Donnie. His body must have started walking toward the small turtle, cause he was closer than where he was. 4 was slowly being sucked into the portal with Draxum only 5 feet away. Draxum looks into the portal before looking back at the boy, who was still struggling to pull him out. Draxum used his one free hand to grab the ball of the Fundo and pushed the ball off and began unraveling the ball wrapped around his wrist. By the time 4 realized what he was doing, it was too late. The Fundo is unraveled and released Draxum to be sucked into the portal. 4 quickly tries to run after him, but the portal closes before he could chase him. He trips, falling to his knees where the portal had just closed. 4 just stood there for what felt like forever. The 3 boys, not too far away, stood there for a moment, not sure of what happened. Raph inched closer to the small turtle, whose back no shell faced him currently. As he approached closer, he could hear cohesive mumbling from the turtle. Something about a portal and a weapon. Raph took his time examining the smaller turtle, still mumbling. Now, looking closer at his outfit, he can see it was modified to fit his shell in a more practical look. He seemed to possess small freckles in the shade of orange, barely noticeable. But looking at his face, he noticed something that practically crushed his heart, bruising as if he had been strangled. He knew Draxum was a bad guy, but to practically hurt a child that sees you as his father, that was low. He had to help him. Why, you okay there, buddy? Raph spoke out. He could hear shuffling behind him. Leo and Donnie were approaching closer as well. 4's mumbling came to a stop when he heard Raph, only turning his head slightly to see the giant snapper. Raph held both his hands out, hoping that he wouldn't be perceived as a threat. He watched the boy closely, noticing he was inspecting both him and the twins behind him. His eyes were moist. It was enough to pain Raph's heart. 4's eyes locked with Leo's. He let out a low growl, grabbing his Fundo and using it to attack Raph. The ball at the end of the Fundo connects with Raph's face, causing him to stumble back. Donnie was quick to react, already having a ladder on hand. 4 stood up as Donnie charged him, ready to strike. 4 stood straight, grounding his portion. 4 grabs Donnie's ladder before they can make contact, catching Donnie off guard. 4 yanks the ladder towards him, causing Donnie to stumble forward, letting go of the ladder in the process. Now weaponless, 4 uses this to his advantage, swiftly kicking Donnie toward Raph, who was getting back up from the surprise attack. 4 turns his attention to Leo, who managed to rearm himself with a swordfish again after seeing his brother being attacked. 4 tossed the ladder to the side, swinging his Kusari Fundo at Leo, who was advancing. Leo dodges the chain ball hurtling toward him. He goes to make a jab at 4 with his fish when suddenly the chain ball is wrapped around him. He crashes to the floor. What? How did it? I just dodged this thing. Leo cried, struggling against the chains. It's a mystic weapon. It was tracking your heat signature. 4 replied. Leo felt pressure against his shell as he was struggling. Now you're going to tell me where you sent him? 4 said, applying more pressure against Leo's shell with his foot. Leo tries to break free of the chains. I don't know who you are talking about, Leo said as he felt the chains wrap tighter to his response. Okay, sure, play dumb. Who else would I be talking about? 4 said, rolling his eyes. He notices both Raph and Donnie approaching closer. Step back or I make a roasted turtle out of him, 4 said, tightening the chains. Okay, let's not approach closer and talk like civilized turtles, Leo said, trying to hide the panic in his voice. Relax, Leo, he won't do that, Raph said, taking one step forward. I'm getting a weird sense of deja vu, Leo said, remembering his time on the roof. 4 tightens his grip on the handle of the Kusari Fundo. Guys, the chains are warming up, Leo said, frantically moving around in the chain. Raph gritted his teeth, taking a step back. The heat on the chains begins to cool down, letting Leo take a sigh of relief. All right now, where did you send him? 4 asked again, looking away from the 2 turtles in front of them for a second to look at the slider. Oh, I know now, I sent him to Des. Leo was cut off by the sudden tightening of chairs. One last time, or did you pour to Lord Draxum? 4 said. Jez, I don't know. I don't even have my swords, Leo cried, now trying to escape the chain's grasp. Mind easing up your lasso of truth there, Wonder Woman, Leo said, noticing the chains getting tighter. Fine, I'll pry it out, brains, and brawn over there, 4 said as the heat on the chain started to rise. Leo began to squirm against the chain. Raph almost took off towards him, but Donnie held him back just in time. A loud honk was heard from the teen's left side. The giant tank came ready to ram through both 4 and Leo. 4 saw the tank not stopping and immediately retracted his fundo, getting out of the way. Leo, now free from the chains, sees that there's no time to get out of the tank's way, so out of instinct he retracted into his shell. The turtle tank breaks and swerves to its side, missing Leo by an inch. Get in, Donnie cries, running to the tank. Leo, now realizing he's not dead, pops out of his shell, seeing Donnie book it to the tank. Raph motions for him to follow. He jumped to his feet and ran to get into the tank. 4 were getting up after jumping out of the tank's way. 2 gargoyles flew out of the warehouse to his aid. Michael, they both shouted as they went to aid the turtle. Michael, Leo thinks to himself, catching the 2 gargoyles' statement as he hopped into the tank. What's the tank doing here? Leo heard Raph say to Donnie as he entered. I summoned it while he was distracted. And speaking of distractions, I suggest we leave now, Donnie said, slamming down a button. Leo and Raph stumble back as the turtle tank jets forward, and the Monitor 4 seemingly attempts to chase after them, only to have the gargoyle stop him. The tank finally comes to a stop when they enter back in New York. Raph takes a breath before saying anything. You okay, Leo? Raph asked. I'm good. A few burns, but nothing major, Leo replied. The tank went deathly silent. After what seemed like hours, when only a minute passed, Leo spoke out. So are we going to talk about it? Notes. Not too angsty bit, there were some sweet moments. But you won't be spared in the next one. Hope you enjoyed. Comment, it gives me strength.